Imagine driving through northern Arizona at midnight, the kind of road where civilization feels like a rumor and the desert stretches endlessly on both sides, silent, black, and watching. The man whose experience is being narrated here wrote his email with shaking hands, years after it happened, because he said some memories do not fade, they wait. He asked that his real name not be used, so he will be referred to as Daniel, a long-haul delivery driver who had been driving across the American Southwest for over 12 years without a single incident worth mentioning, until one night on Route 44 made him question everything he believed about reality. Daniel wrote that before that night, he was not superstitious, not religious, and definitely not someone who believed in ghosts. Route 44 runs through a lonely stretch of Arizona, cutting across desert land between Flagstaff and remote industrial drop points, an area known for abandoned service roads, old mining paths, and long, unlit distances where your headlights feel weak against the dark. On the night of October 17, 2011, Daniel was assigned a late delivery run, the kind drivers hate but accept because the pay is better. His GPS showed nothing unusual, just miles of empty road, occasional warning signs about wildlife crossings, and no towns for nearly 50 miles. Daniel mentioned that the silence that night felt heavier than usual, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. The radio kept losing signal, switching to static every few minutes, and his phone showed no service bars at all. He remembered glancing at the clock on his dashboard and noticing it was exactly 12:11 a.m. when the temperature suddenly dropped inside the cab, cold enough that he could see his breath for a brief moment. At first, he thought the AC unit malfunctioned, but when he reached to adjust it, the controls were unresponsive, frozen in place. That was the first detail he said bothered him later, because his truck had been serviced. That same week. About 10 miles down Route 44, Daniel noticed something ahead on the road, far enough that it looked like a shadow stretching unnaturally across the asphalt. At first, he assumed it was an animal, maybe an elk or a cow, common in that area, so he slowed down slightly. As he got closer, he realized the shape was wrong. It was tall, far too tall to be any animal, and impossibly thin, like a vertical smear of darkness standing upright in the middle of the road. Daniel wrote that his headlights did not reflect off it properly, as if the light bent around the figure instead of illuminating it. He remembers gripping the steering wheel tighter, telling himself fatigue was playing tricks on his eyes. Long drives can do that, hallucinations caused by exhaustion, something drivers joke about. But this felt different. The figure did not move as he approached. It did not react. It simply stood there, perfectly still, facing the truck. Daniel said that when he was close enough to see details, he realized there were none. No facial features, no clothing texture, no outline of limbs the way a human body would have. It was just a darker black against the blackness of the night, shaped like a man but empty of detail, like a cutout where something should be. Panic set in when his brakes failed to respond immediately. He pressed harder, feeling resistance only after what felt like several seconds too late. The truck slowed, tires screeching, and at the last moment, the figure moved. It did not step away. It did not run. It simply glided sideways, passing directly in front of the headlights, close enough that Daniel felt a sudden pressure in his ears, like being underwater. Then it vanished. Not ran off. Not dissolved. Just gone. The road ahead was empty. Daniel slammed the brakes fully and brought the truck to a complete stop in the middle of Route 44. He sat there for nearly a full minute, heart pounding so loudly he thought it might drown out the silence. He checked the mirrors, front and back. Nothing. The desert was still. No wind. No sound. No insects. That was when he noticed the smell, something metallic and old, like rust mixed with burnt rubber, filling the cab. He opened the door slightly to get fresh air, but the smell was stronger outside. Daniel wrote that standing on the asphalt, under the cold Arizona stars, he suddenly felt an overwhelming sense that he was not alone, even though the road stretched empty in both directions. He described it as the feeling you get when someone is standing directly behind you, close enough that you can sense their presence without hearing or seeing them. He turned around quickly. There was nothing there. But when he looked back toward the road ahead, he noticed something new. About 30 feet in front of his truck, on the asphalt, there were marks. Long, dark streaks that looked like burn marks, not from tires, but from something dragging across the road. They ended abruptly, as if whatever made them simply ceased to exist. Daniel did not stay to investigate further. He got back into the cab, locked the doors, and drove the rest of the route in silence, not stopping even once. He wrote that he did not tell anyone about the incident for weeks, not his dispatcher, not his family, because he knew how it would sound. But what happened next is why he finally decided to send that email, because Route 44 was not finished with him, and the black figure was only the beginning. Daniel wrote that after that night on Route 44, he tried to convince himself the incident was nothing more than exhaustion mixed with isolation, a common psychological response among long-haul drivers who spend too many hours staring into darkness. For nearly 2 weeks after the encounter, nothing unusual happened, which almost made it worse, because the memory did not fade, it sharpened. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that shape again, tall and featureless, standing where no living thing should stand. He mentioned in his email that he began avoiding Route 44 whenever possible, even if it meant longer drives and lower pay. But fate, schedules, and contracts do not care about fear. On November 2, 2011, Daniel was assigned another late-night delivery that required him to pass through the same stretch of road. He considered calling in sick, something he had never done in over a decade of driving, but he didn't. He wrote that part of him needed to know if what he saw was real, because not knowing felt worse than facing it again. That night, the desert looked different to him. Every mile marker felt like a countdown, every curve in the road made his chest tighten. He kept the radio on at full volume, switching stations whenever static crept in, clinging to human voices as proof that he was not alone in the world. Around 12:09 a.m., almost the same time as before, the radio cut out completely. The display went dark. The cab grew cold again, faster this time, as if the temperature dropped all at once instead of gradually. Daniel checked his phone out of habit, even though he knew there would be no signal. What he didn't expect was that the screen turned on by itself. No incoming call. No message. Just a black screen reflecting his own face, pale and tense, staring back at him. That was when he noticed movement in the reflection, something behind him that wasn't there when he turned his head. He spun around in his seat, heart racing, but the sleeper cab was empty. No sound. No motion. Just the hum of the engine and the endless road outside the windshield. 10 minutes later, the headlights caught something again, farther away this time, standing near the shoulder of the road instead of directly in the lane. Daniel slowed down instinctively. The figure was the same, tall, black, and unnaturally thin, but now he could see something new. It was facing away from the truck. Its posture was wrong, shoulders slumped at an impossible angle, head tilted slightly downward as if it were staring at the ground. Daniel wrote that he told himself not to stop, not to slow down, not to look too closely. Every instinct screamed at him to keep driving. But as he passed the figure, something happened that made his blood run cold. The figure turned its head. Slowly. Not like a human would, but smoothly, without resistance, rotating until it was facing the truck. There were still no features, no eyes, no mouth, but Daniel said he knew, with absolute certainty, that it was looking directly at him. At that exact moment, the truck's engine sputtered and died. The headlights went out. The dashboard lights vanished. The world collapsed into darkness and silence so complete that Daniel could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. He tried the ignition again and again. Nothing. No response. No sound. That was when he heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from outside the truck. Each step sounded heavy, like boots on asphalt, but there was a dragging quality to it, as if one leg didn't lift properly. Daniel froze, unable to move, unable to breathe properly, staring into the darkness beyond the windshield. The footsteps stopped directly in front of the truck. Something pressed against the hood, hard enough that the metal creaked. Then came the sound he described as the worst part of the entire experience, a low, vibrating hum, not quite a voice, not quite a sound, but something that seemed to resonate inside his head instead of his ears. He said it. Felt like a pressure building behind his eyes, filling his thoughts with images that were not his own. Empty desert roads. Crashed vehicles. Headlights burning in the dark with no drivers inside. For a brief, terrifying moment, Daniel was certain that if he stayed there any longer, he would be added to whatever collection of memories this thing carried. Without warning, the pressure vanished. The hum stopped. The footsteps moved away. The truck's engine roared back to life on its own, headlights snapping on as if nothing had happened. The road ahead was empty again. Shaking uncontrollably, Daniel drove. He didn't look back. He didn't slow down. He didn't stop until he reached a rest area nearly 40 miles away. There, under harsh fluorescent lights, surrounded by other trucks and people, he finally allowed himself to breathe. He checked the front of his truck and found something that still haunts him. Pressed into the dust on the hood were handprints, long and narrow, too large to be human, smeared as if whatever made them had leaned its weight forward. Daniel washed them off before anyone else could see, terrified of the questions he couldn't answer. That night, he began researching Route 44, digging through online forums, archived news reports, and obscure DOT complaint logs. What he found confirmed his worst fear. He wasn't the first. And whatever was out there had been seen before. Make sure to like this video and subscribe, because the final part will expose the one detail Daniel said he never told anyone, the detail that proves Route 44 is still claiming people even today.